welcome. We've got a great show for you tonight. As you saw, Hillary and Chelsea Clinton are here. I know. And mom and daughter have written a book together called Gutsy Women. Oh, it's a great book. I mean, who wouldn't enjoy reading about strong and inspirational women? Now, while she's in the UK, Hillary will be doing the usual book readings, and she is so good at it. Because, of course, not all politicians are great at reading aloud. Yeah. Lost your crowd there. A lot of inspirational works have been written by politicians, including this leaflet. Jo Swinson, Britain's next Prime Minister. Yeah, I find that on the shelf marked fantasy. One of the things we love about Hillary, though, is that just days after losing an election, she still managed to put a smile on her face. And it's something politicians in this country are already practicing. Chelsea currently takes a leading role in the Clinton Foundation charity, and as such has had to do all sorts of strange things. Here she is, pretending to be pleased to meet a shaggy-haired Muppet. Yeah, it's an idea she got from her mom. Let's get some guests on! Later, we'll be having music from Kesha! Yay! But first, this comedian and actor starred in Peep Show, That Mitchell and Webb Look, and of course, Would I Lie to You? It's David Mitchell! Woo! I come here, I greet, I escort you. David Mitchell, everybody! In the 20 years since The Naked Chef burst upon our screens, this man has become our favourite chef, campaigner and author. Always a pleasure to welcome Mr. Jamie Oliver! Woo! Have a seat, you. And we have the co-writers of the book of Gutsy Women. One is a former First Daughter turned author and activist. The other is a former First Lady, Secretary of State and one-time presidential nominee. Please welcome Chelsea Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton. Kissing.
Yeah,
I'm waving from afar.
Oh, all right.
Oh, how is everybody? Lovely to see you all. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here.
Yes, welcome back. First time for Chelsea.
Thank you very much.
And I'm thinking, is this your first time abroad since you had a new baby, Chelsea?
It is.
So
yes.
Is that nice, or are you kind of, you know...
Well, I'm sleep-deprived and over-caffeinated wherever I am.
Okay, sorry.
But he's here with me.
Oh, he is here with you?
Yes. I mean, not in your studio, but
he
is here in London with me.
Oh, I see. Oh, I thought you left him behind.
No, well, I'm breastfeeding, so he has to come with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He doesn't really have a choice.
You can always FedEx it. Just...
Maybe.
And this is your third child, right?
It is, yeah.
And how is Hillary Rodham Clinton at being a grandmother?
Well, she's a very good grandmother, but she also spoils them, which is a point of some continued conversation between the two of us. Yes, like she thinks pizza is fine at least twice, if not 3 times a day.
Well, they like it.
Amy,
I mean, really.
Yeah, they eat it, don't they?
Yeah, they eat it.
Not being very helpful.
Like, I mean, yes, I do, yes. And then you give them back.
That's
all sugared up.
It is the best system. You know, you get these wonderful new people in your life, and you're thrilled, you're so happy for your child who's now a parent, and you get exhausted helping to take care of them, and then you leave. I mean, it works out perfectly.
Now, as people with young children in your life, now you've met David Mitchell backstage.
Yes.
David, could you say something that might help them realise that they do know you?
OK. I play Police Officer Panda on Peppa Pig.
Oh.
Yeah. See, I love it. But what, does he arrest Peppa Pig? I don't watch the program. What does he do?
He doesn't
No,
arrest
he doesn't
Peppa
arrest
Pig.
Peppa Pig.
All right.
No.
He's a policeman.
Doesn't arrest any...
Look, I have to thank David and anyone associated with Peppa the Pig, because the other thing you get to do... Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig.
Pig is her surname.
Oh,
Coincidentally, she is a pig.
He's trying to give you an out.
This
They
is
both
so
work.
helpful. Because we do spend time watching Peppa Pig.
Yeah. Or as I call it, Peppa Pig the pig.
And so now when we see Panda
Police officer panda.
Police officer.
Who isn't a pig?
No, who isn't a pig?
No.
He's a panda.
He's a panda.
As I understand
All
it.
over it.
We will say to our grandchildren, we know panda.
yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be huge for me.
Yeah, no, my son Aiden is going to be really
Well, listen,
excited.
this is a revelation for me, because all of my kids have had Peppa the Pig. I didn't, know... It's nearly Christmas. It brainwashes you, though, doesn't it? As a parent, I've had it for the lot of them.
I must have really understand.
Yeah, you've been through this.
You know, it's I do agree with seasoning on pig.
And we met a man who killed Peppa Pig. Now, we're beginning tonight with Hilary and Chelsea's new book. It's the book of gutsy women, favourite stories of courage and resilience, and it's out now. And it strikes me that both of you have obviously published books under your own names, but you wrote this together. So practically, how did it work? Are you on either sides of a desk? Is there a partner desk?
No, she's in her apartment. I'm in my house. And, you know, we started off kind of with long lists of hundreds of women that we both admire and are inspired by, and then we had to keep cutting it down and finally got to the 103 that are in the book. But it was a joy to work with her because we're on the same wavelength in terms of what we wanted to say and the kinds of people we wanted to write about. I think Chelsea would probably tell you that it was a little more challenging of a process for her than it was for me.
OK. Is that because you did more of it?
No.
I mean, well...
Peppa Pig!
So, Graham, I knew that my mother wrote longhand because I had read previous kind of early book drafts of her prior books, but I didn't understand what that would mean for our collaboration together until we really kind of got into working together. I guess I should say I type on a computer because it's 2019. So I would, you know, write a draft of a woman and save it and send it to her. And then my mother would kind of send me her drafts of the women whose biography she'd been working on. But the way that I would receive those would be kind of single pages sent in a photograph. So she would take a picture of, say, like, page 1 of Harriet Tubman and send that in one email. And then she would take a picture of, like, page 2 of Harriet Tubman and send that in a second email. So arguably I worked more because it took a while to, like, figure out how to decipher all of her handwriting, figure out how to unlock all the attachments. Oh, you have evidence.
Is this real?
Yes.
So,
Victoria Menge, yes, the great South African civil rights lawyer.
Like, a photograph is all very well, but you still have to read it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and it's totally legible, really.
Mainly legible.
That doesn't look that legible.
Well, I am just of that generation where I think better when I write in longhand. And, you know, I do know other authors who write longhand.
This is her main defense.
Well,
Most authors up until the beginning of the 20th century. I think.
So now you have
21st.
You have history.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. I have no sympathy. But what she really wanted to tell you, Graham, is who else writes longhand? Who else writes longhand, Mom?
Well, I think Margaret Atwood writes longhand.
Oh, OK.
Barack Obama writes longhand.
Oh, OK.
I mean, I could go on and on. OK. Yeah, so I kind of rest my case.
Geoffrey Chaucer, he wrote longhand.
William Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare wrote longhand.
OK, so you did get it down to 103 women in the book. Did you fight over anybody, or were you in agreement all the time?
We were mostly in agreement, but our problem was we could have literally written thousands of essays because everybody in this audience and everybody watching knows a gutsy woman. And part of what we hope is that you'll think about the gutsy women in your life. You'll maybe find inspiration to be gutsier yourself. I mean, we really want this to be not just about these remarkable women, but about all of us.
And for you, Chelsea, I mean, obviously some of the women in the book are very well known and they're household names, we all know them. But who were some of the women who you found and you thought, oh, great, I really want to tell this woman's story in the book?
Well, a few. I mean, there's a woman who I just am so determined we're going to write back into American history named Claudette Colvin. He was a 15-year-old on her way home from school in Montgomery, Alabama. And The bus was full. A white woman got on the bus and said, "You have to give up your seat." And she said no. And it was 9 months before Rosa Parks did the same. So while we justifiably learn about Rosa Parks, at least in American schools, we should really learn about Claudette Colvin, too, because it's actually her name on the Supreme Court case where the court ultimately upheld that segregation in public transportation was illegal in Montgomery and throughout the state of Alabama. So I was lucky enough to learn her story in school, but because my teacher really cared about teaching us about other young changemakers in American history, not because she was in my American history textbook.
And it's weird because I think we think of these things as historical, but, you know, she's still alive, she's 80. We've got a picture of you meeting Rosa Parks.
Oh, right.
You met her.
You know, I fully agree with Chelsea about writing back into history, Claudette Colvin, but I also want to make sure Rosa Parks stays in history.
Yes.
Rosa Parks was one of my heroines.
And it strikes me, Hilary, that in terms of being a gutsy woman, it was something you chose. You knew you wanted more for yourself.
Right.
And you, as a young woman, you looked for kind of inspiration. You looked for these stories.
Well, I did. And when I was like 13 years old and President Kennedy had said we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, I wrote a letter to NASA. And I said, I want to be an astronaut. And I got a letter back saying we don't take girls and women. And I thought, well, that, you know, it wasn't really a big disappointment to me. I was never going to be an astronaut. But the idea that they wouldn't take any girl or any woman, and it was a real wake-up call, because nobody up until then had ever said, because I was in elementary school, and nobody said, you can't do this because you're a girl. You know, my parents were very encouraging of education. So then fast forward, we write about Sally Ride, who was the first American woman in space, and Chelsea actually got to meet her all those years later. So it shows in just one story where we went from my childhood, no women, to the first woman, American woman in space.
Who I could look up to, literally.
It's funny. It's funny though. You mentioned writing letters when you were young. David, you were one of those children. You wrote letters, didn't you? No, because I do think there's some children who just kind of don't bother. But you bothered, didn't you?
Well, I can't remember any other letters than this one, but I wrote a letter when there was a program when Play School was on. You remember Play School? It was a program here for very young children, and it was like set in a fictional house. And then there was a bit, I think, to try and help children learn to tell the time, where there was a clock. Just before the story, I think there was a clock, and you go down, and the thing beneath the clock would go round, and there would be figures on it, and it was quite magical. And then that stopped going round at one point, and I was told, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I was told it was because of a union dispute at the BBC. the union involved.
How old were you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was. I think I would have been 5, 6.
Did you know what a union was?
I don't think so, but I later was told it was a union dispute. Anyway, I was told it was an argument between the people who did the thing going round and other people, like the people who read the stories or you know. And so I wrote a letter, I think, vacuously suggesting that they should have some sort of conversation to resolve their differences.
You must have been about...
No, I was younger than that.
You were younger than 8?
Chelsea wrote a letter when she was
I
did.
5 to President Reagan.
I did.
What was grinding your gears?
She would just popped up one day and said she wanted to write a letter to President Reagan.
So the first thing I learned how to read was the newspaper. Probably not surprising in my house. And I read an article one day when I was 5 in the newspaper over my Cheerios that I'd secretly put honey on top of because my mother wouldn't let me have sugar cereal. She now spoils my children. But she didn't
say
me as a
that's
child.
holding a grudge.
A little bit.
On this back show, and I'm going to bring up that honey on the Cheerios again.
Did you notice it wasn't subtle enough? Next time it'll be more subtle. And I read that President Reagan was going on a state visit to what was in West Germany. And he was going to visit Bitburg Cemetery. And at Bitburg, there were Nazis buried there, including members of the SS leadership. And I didn't think an American president should be going to pay his respect on behalf of our country to a place where Nazis were buried.
How old were you?
I was 5, but I wrote a letter to President Reagan, and I said...
Give her the honey.
Well, clearly. I learned about the Nazis, to be fair, from The Sound of Music.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote a letter saying, you know, dear Mr. President, I've seen The Sound of Music. The Nazis were not nice people. Please.
Going on.
Yeah, please don't go to their cemetery.
Mate, I just wrote to Jim will fix it and wanted to meet Kevin Keegan.
He still went, so my letter wasn't effective. Did your letter get the thing moving around again?
No, but what it...
So neither of us were successful.
Well, it depends how you classify it, because I did receive in the post by return a BBC balloon.
I didn't get anything back.
Yeah.
Why not me?
Did that please you?
Very much so.
There you go.
Had the BBC, the old BBC logo on it. No, and it's got larger when I inflated the balloon.
In terms of being a gutsy woman, obviously we talked to you, Hilary, that it was something you chose. But I feel for you, Chelsea, you didn't choose. You became very famous. You were on a world stage very young. Well, how old were you when you went to the White House? 13?
12.
12. I hope the world has changed since then. But back then, I can remember, it was just open season on Chelsea Clinton jokes
Yes.
and things. Were you protected from that, or was it possible to protect you
I don't
from
think
that?
it was possible to protect me from that. I mean, partly because I'd go to school and people would repeat what they'd heard on the radio or the television. Partly because I was reading the newspaper, so sometimes I would, like, read in the newspaper what had been said.
Yeah.
And it was a bit disorienting because it was just sort of everyone. And yet, thankfully, Graham, I knew that it was totally bonkers that these adults were making fun of a kid. Like, why did anyone think it was okay to make fun of an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old? Like, what had not gone right for them when they were 11 or 12 that they thought, you know, it was acceptable to make fun of a little girl, basically, because they thought I was awkward, or because of my braces, or my frizzy hair, because, I don't know, I had said like too many times, or whatever these things were that they felt justified in mocking me, you know, in front of millions of people. And I'm really thankful to my mom, because I knew it was just not about me. It was all about them.
God. But it must have been horrible as a parent. And it must have been hellish for you guys.
First of all, as Chelsea said, it was so bizarre. I mean, there are plenty of reasons that these people and shows could criticize Bill or me or anything about, you know, his politics. I mean, that's totally fair game. But why pick on a child?
Yeah.
And it really hurt me a lot. But it also bewildered me. I couldn't understand it. Because, I mean, look, politics is a brutal sport, you know, contact sport and all of that. So when you get into it, you know you're going to get battered and bruised a little by what people say about you and how they characterize you. But I think kids should be off limits. I think everybody's kids should be off limits.
And I think now, in terms of, like, mainstream media and, you know, like a show like this, and so, I don't think we would ever do it now.
No.
But then, in other ways, it's got worse because you've got a totally unpoliced social media.
Right.
And I know, Chelsea, you try very hard to maintain civility on social media, but it's a losing battle.
And I do take it really personally when people attack Sasha and Malia Obama, or even Barron Trump. I mean, Barron was 11 when his father was elected, so just a year younger than I was when my dad was elected. I was 11 when he announced, 12 when he won.
Yeah.
And I just find it abhorrent that people who are, you know, arguably on the same side of the political spectrum as I am, think that it's okay to make whatever point they're trying to make about his father, kind of through making fun of his kid. I mean, I disagree with President Trump on everything, but I would stand on the barricades to defend his son's right to privacy and his son's right to have the childhood that I think every kid deserves, whatever their address.
Yeah. Jamie, do you have coping mechanisms when you sometimes find yourself at the eye of a storm, like when the whole Spanish people decided to hate you and things like that? Are you able to step back?
Shall I get them up to speed? This is when I dared to put chorizo in paella. Oh, yes. You know, I had death threats for that. Yes, seriously, for real. Yes, I mean, silly old me. Silly old me for letting that little sausage pop into that pan.
You don't want that to be taken out of context.
Yeah. We'll pick that up.
Yeah.
But are you able to kind of just disassociate yourself from...
No, it starts off as a laugh.
Yeah.
And then it goes on, and then it's going in the press, and then it goes all throughout Spain, and then it starts going abroad, and then you start getting a few death threats thrown in there, and you're like, it's just a sausage. It got really serious.
Yeah.
But it's happened a couple of times. I think I put parsley in jollof rice once. That went viral as well. Oops. Parsley.
Yeah.
What
But in terms of that outrage, in your book, we'll talk about your book more in a moment, David, but in your book, one of the things you talk about is how Twitter has unleashed a kind of anger that we didn't even know existed, really.
Oh, yes, it's absolutely. Offence and rage have become... you know, firstly, anyone who is going to be offended by a particular thing will be brought face to face with it at top speed. The chances of people not being aware of something they might not like are 0 on social media. They'll get it straight away. And secondly, we have this... There's definitely a sort of recreation of taking offence. People enjoy it. It's sort of, oh, who's crossed the line now? Let's all join in and have our own go at expressing why it's wrong. And it's you know, it's nasty. It's a nasty thing that social media has created, and that's just hurtful. That's just a hurtful way to debate.
Well, it's like Angry Driver, but you've published what you shouted at the other driver.
That's right.
I always think it's like that weird rage you have in a car. Suddenly people are tweeting
That's
that.
right.
That
And attracting every other... You know,
Angry
driver. Then it just explodes. It gets bigger and
I
bigger.
mean, he got death threats about chorizo.
Well, in fairness, it was paella. Very quickly, going back to Gutsy Women, First Ladies feature in the book. There's a few.
Yes.
And one of the honours, I didn't know this happened, that it's not just the President, but the First Lady gets her portrait painted.
That's true.
And is hung in the White House.
Yes, it is.
And I think we've got a picture of your portrait hanging in the White House. There it is.
That's a great Bless.
Everyone's loving it.
You know, I often say I live rent-free in his head, and that's just another illustration of it.
Now, we move on to Jamie Oliver's new book. It's called Veg, and it's out now. And in terms of your relationship with kind of, you know, being vegetarian and vegan, this isn't no sense of you kind of jumping on a bandwagon. You've been working on this book for a long time.
I wrote that nearly 9 years ago.
Wow.
And it just wasn't the right time for me to publish it, really. I think we've come quite a long way in that time, and whenever you talk about veggie, vegan, this, that, or the other, it can be quite a divisive conversation, and I really, as a meat eater, I wanted to sort of really try and get more meat eaters eating more veg.
Yeah, and so it's not about preaching to people. It's not saying be a vegetarian.
No, it's just solutions. I knew for a fact from all the kind of positive stuff that we get back from the internet, which is people want more help with more non-meat sort of meals, dinners, which of course are absolutely normal. If you go around, you know, the whole of the Mediterranean, or you go back hundreds of years, this is completely normal cooking. We just don't talk about it. And
well, it's that thing, you don't tell someone it's veg. If you tell someone it's vegetarian, immediately they're going, oh. But if you don't mention it, they might just eat it.
No, and I think just a lot's changed. And I think, really, I always had my dad in my head when I was kind of writing recipes, you know, is it going to fulfil you? Is it going to be feel like a complete meal? And, you know, my job, as usual, is to kind of give people what they want, but sort of take them on a bit of a journey.
And now, did you get death threats over this? This was your veggie pasty. Now, why did this cause such an outrage?
Oh, well, it didn't really. It was only Philip Schofield that called me a pervert. But it wasn't the fact that it was veggie, it was the fact that I ripped it open and stuffed it with watercress and apple, and he thought that was very strange. Notice it doesn't say Cornish pasty.
No.
Had I said that, I probably wouldn't be here today.
You're owning it. It's my veggie pasty. Yeah. And in terms of that thing you were talking about, you know, a balanced meal, a full meal, what are the big kind of hitters in here if you want to kind of win a crowd over?
Well, it depends where you are on your journey, but I think, you know, for us, sort of doing like a cottage pie, so we did the allotment cottage pie, lots of curries, you know, probably 30-40% of the book is vegan anyway, so there's some amazing Southern Indian-style curries there, which I just love. And we've got everything from brunch, lunch, dinner. I mean, it was trying to give a bit of everything to someone that maybe was, you know, had a slightly awkward other half that didn't want to have something without meat.
David, you look pale and interesting. Are you a vegetarian?
Thank you, though. No, I'm a meat eater, and I feel at the moment I feel that the vegetarians are slightly caught between the meat eaters and the vegans. I don't mean like caught like an animal in a trap, and if so, we know which side would eat them. But But, you know, the vegetarian, you see, you know, there's so much veganism now, and I can completely see, you know, I feel basically perpetually guilty about eating meat, but I used to feel perpetually guilty about everything anyway, so, you know, it doesn't really change my worldview. So another thing on the list, I'm terrible. But I love vegetarian food, and it goes beautifully on the side of a piece of meat.
But I wish that your cookbook had been around.
Yeah.
Because I gave up red meat when I was 11.
Right.
And then all meat when I was 13.
Because Hillary, when you were campaigning with Bill for the White House, you were the vegetables champion.
Yeah, I
You
love
were.
that.
Look, we've got you with a banner. Look,
I
you go,
love
look. Let's put broccoli in the White House again. I mean,
Well, that was because the former president, the one we were campaigning against, had taken broccoli out of the White House.
he just didn't like broccoli.
He
He
not
did
like
not. He banished broccoli.
Wow.
No broccoli was to appear on any...
It was his least favorite vegetable.
Yes, right. So I happen to like broccoli.
Claire,
And,
please
and,
do.
you know, there's a lot of things you can argue about, but I thought arguing about broccoli was as good as anything.
Because, Chelsea, you talk about the healthy eating there, but, like, were you allowed kind of treats in the White House? Could you have junk food and...
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like on the weekends. Like the
No
weekends
honey,
were...
but, you know.
Yeah, well...
No, honey, a little.
Yeah, I mean, on the weekends. I mean, it was pretty strict during the week. And then more relaxed on the weekends.
And could you have people over? Could friends
Yes.
come over and stuff?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, the place was filled with her friends. Yeah, absolutely.
God, that's
and,
fine.
and, you know, it's true that, you know, the White House does like to prepare all the food. And the kids were not always enthusiastic about the food that they were being served. So they were always trying to call for pizzas. And you can't order a pizza to the White House. I'll just tell you that right now. And we didn't...
Sometimes there were exceptions.
Yeah, sometimes you could go out maybe, and one of the kids could go out maybe and meet the...
And pick it up.
Yeah,
Get
the
it through
pizza
the
driver.
fence.
Yeah, but the first time you would have thought that, you know, war had been declared. There's a pizza truck outside that says a pizza was ordered. What do we do with it? We had lots of challenges like that.
I mean, to be honest, it sounds like a crank call from the pizza restaurant's point
Yeah,
of view.
exactly.
You want some pizzas at the White House?
Exactly,
Yes, thank you
yeah.
very much. We're very busy.
But somebody took it seriously and showed up.
The extra
And
large
Jamie,
pizza.
you've been in this world because you've cooked for presidents and prime ministers, and you didn't bring food to number 10. You've cooked in number 10.
Many times, yes. It's always a pleasure to cook.
And is it like a hotel kitchen or...
It's actually a rubbish kitchen. It's quite interesting because when I did the G20, we had all, you know, the biggest leaders of the world, you know, in for a dinner. Me and my team were responsible for it, and they didn't even have enough matching plates. It was properly wrong. I mean, I even said to the head of the
Did you
household...
bring in your own plate?
No, I said to the head of the household, listen, I'm not being funny. Do you want me to have a little whip around and I'll get you a new set of plates? Because obviously, like, I mean, I'm all down with, like, rustic and sort of casual, but, like, when it's the G20 and, like, I'm representing Britain, and you don't want it to be, like, the mankiest food of all the G20s, do you know what I mean?
Well, that is what they'd expect from Britain, isn't it?
But, like, you already know how many plates you need.
Yeah, but
It's
when-
20.
But what happened with the plates?
So there was no... I didn't have enough of the same colour or shape
So mix
or
and match.
decoration, so I had to kind of put it over the other side so hopefully they would see it.
Which countries' leaders didn't get the matching plate?
I'm not going to say, but the less important ones. But it's funny because I did it with my 15 students, so, you know, and quite a proportion of them have had history with the law. So when you get the phone call sort of saying, you know, do you want to come and do the meal, it's like, you know that my team there's quite a lot of criminal records there, so you might need to do a little bit of back-checking and sort of... And we're all turning up in whites and knives in rolls and, you know, it's like the X-ray machine's going to be going off. It was an amazing day, really inspirational. And then actually, Mr. and Mrs. Obama asked to see us, which was lovely. And then there was a beautiful moment for me because my students, that, you know, a proportion of them, their parents came from different countries, all naturally went off to all the presidents of their motherland. And it was just amazing. They were talking their languages.
Oh,
and-
wow.
Yeah, so it's great.
And you
Always
mentioned
proud.
15 there. It's such a great concept. There's still one in Brighton.
No, there's still one in Cornwall.
Cornwall.
And sadly, London closed this year.
Yeah. Which must have been heartbreaking. Was that a casualty of Jamie's Italian?
Yes.
Or it was tied up with all
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So I lost my restaurants in the UK this year, which was, really tough. 13 years, really hard work. 15 was my baby. But I just couldn't... ran out of money, ran out of everything, and it was really tough. But you know, I think you crack on, you push on, and try and get yourself together. Try and do it all the right way, and make sure the staff were looked after. And if you run a business in this country right now, there has been no good news for 5 years. And it's tough for everyone in every business. And, our towns are changing at a rate of knots. And I think, of course, there's, like, online and digital and all the apps for everything. Of course. But, you know, there's a lot of mess to sort out. So, you know, I think for any business operating now in Britain, they're all working so hard to survive.
Yeah.
Forget profit, you know, like, just to survive. So you know...
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck, everyone. Moving on, Dave Mitchell brings us a book. It's called Dishonesty is the Second Best Policy. And this is out now, and it's your Observer columns over kind of the last 5 years,
Yes,
about?
yeah.
And the columns kind of cover, you know, things that are going on in the news and in our culture and in our society. And one of the things you pick up on is what's happened to facts, that facts aren't what they once were.
Yeah. Facts. I thought you were talking about the defunct way of sending messages.
No.
And what happened to that? Well, I'll tell you what's happened to that, the internet. And it's the least of its victims. Yes, well, that's the thing. The internet has happened to both forms of fact, both faxes and facts. The internet has seen to.
Yes.
Because now, essentially, you can't tell truth from lies. They both look perfectly nicely typeset. They're both on websites. Loads of people endlessly saying how mainstream media is all lies. Well, it's not all lies, is it? I mean, in fact, there's a lot more recourse if there is a specific lie in mainstream media than there is on a random website that someone's just put up there. But people are going around saying, no, mainstream media is all lies. And that is bullshit. And the fact that people think that is extremely worrying. But it's one of the other terrible effects of the internet, that the truth, you know, it is out there, but it may never again be discerned.
But also, we do seem to be going backwards. Like, you talk in the book about how we now have to listen to people saying the Earth is flat.
Yeah. Yes, that's one of the pieces in there is about the new Flat Earth International Conference. It isn't a conference from the 14th century. This is a conference that started, I think, in 2017. And it is a growing thing, and that's because people are so contrarian, people are so willing to believe unsubstantiated things that have websites, that they are now going back on the conclusion we have all rightly drawn about the shape of the planet we live on. And that people are sort of going, and by people I mean idiots, are saying, I'm a questioning person, so why am I going to go along with this idea that the world is round? Well, I'll tell you why, because people went up in a rocket, looked out of the window and took a bloody photo.
Is part of the problem is that, you know, you can't call people stupid anymore.
He just did.
Oh, no.
You're cancelled.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. It's the idea that, you know, one thing is a fact and another thing is an opinion, and that's not as important as a fact, is now considered terribly elitist.
Yes.
And you sort of go, well, you say that the red light means that you stop at the traffic lights, but my opinion is that that's a sort of angry light saying, yeah, let's get going. You know, and that suddenly, if you can't have a society where certain assertions are officially dignified as truth and other assertions merely as opinion or, indeed, in some cases, definitely a lie, then our civilization can no longer progress.
Fair enough.
So we're finished. That's yeah.
Done and dusted. We're an old country.
Yeah.
You know, America's a younger country. Are you still at all optimistic, Hillary?
I am fundamentally optimistic. I mean, there's all these little indicators of people trying to turn the clock back and push back the progress that David was referencing. So that does worry me. But I think when it's all hopefully worked out here and there, people will say, wait a minute, you know, there's things we need to be smarter about, do better about, but let's not turn the clock back, for heaven's sakes.
And it's interesting, in the book, there's an American sportswoman, American soccer star, Abby Wambach, I think that's what you say to him, and she's extraordinary. She's scored more goals
than any man or woman.
Ever.
Ever.
And when she came to the end of her career, she did this final kind of endorsement advertising campaign, and the tagline was, "Forget me." Why did that appeal to you, Hillary?
Well, what she was saying as she retired was, you know, I want to make way for new people. You know, forget me, forget my accomplishments. Let's clear the decks. Let's encourage more young people, not only to play football, but run for office, be a great chef, be a writer, be whatever. And I loved that because in our house, we had a saying about, you know, how important it was also to be second. You know, somebody could be the first at something, but that didn't mean that you would stop pursuing your own dreams. You could be the second, the third, the 100th. You would be doing what you were meant to do. And I think Abby's, you know, really inspirational speech that she gave a few years ago, mostly aimed at young women, was you've got to go out and do what you're afraid to do. You've got to take the risks to be who you know deep in your heart you should be. And I'm going to get off the stage because I want another great footballer up here. I want somebody else who is, you know, going to beat my record. And I love that because that is what we should be doing to tell the next generation.
And where are you? Are you saying, "Forget me"? Is that your mantra now?
Not yet.
Because the rumor mill is flying that you could step back into the ring.
Yeah, I hear that. I especially have been deluged in, you know, the last few weeks with thinking about doing that. But right now, I'm not at all. You know, planning that. I'd have to make up my mind really quickly because it's moving very fast. But I do want to continue to influence the debate. You know, I'm not leaving, you know, the political arena completely. I'm working really hard to, you know, make it clear that we have to hold our current leadership accountable. So I'm on Twitter. I'm not as I think, clever as Chelsea is at, you know, dealing with a lot of the undercurrents of Twitter, but I'm out there all the time, sort of pointing out some of the foolishness and craziness that we are currently experiencing. So, you know, I'm not going anywhere. I just don't know what role I will be actually in.
But I'm looking at Chelsea, and I'm thinking, this is your mom, and you're hearing she's not ruling out the idea of running again. Does your blood run cold? I mean, can you watch your mother go through that again?
Well, I mean, she is first and foremost my mom, which I think sometimes people forget. I mean, as proud as I am of everything that she's done, she's first and foremost my mom, and I guess maybe now my kid's grandmother.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I feel like protective of her, but I know that, you know, she'll continue to not only influence the debate, but help push the debate forward, however she does that. I'm in her corner, Graham, like whatever she decides to do, but that's for her to decide.
Well, whatever you decide to do, phenomenal woman. Really nice to see you again. Thank you so much, Hillary. Thank you. Hillary Clinton. Right, it is time for music. This woman's career took off a decade ago with the breakout single TikTok. Now she's back with a hotly awaited new album. Here performing Raising Hell, it's Kesha! Fantastic! Kesha, everybody! Come on over, Kesha! Come on over, dude! And let's give it up to those dancers! Fabulous job! Thank you so much. That was terrific. Oh, so good. You worked your magic. Come on in. That's David Mitchell, David Oliver, Chelsea Clinton, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hello, Jenny.
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
excellent, excellent. Oh, it's a bit of hugging. Nice, nice. Yes, you may sit now. Your dancing is over.
Thank you.
Oh. And actually, Kesha and Hillary, have you met before? I think you have.
We have, yeah.
We have.
Oh, okay.
With my mom.
Oh,
That's right.
I'm so nervous to, like, be sitting however many feet away.
That single, Raising Hell, is out now.
It is out now, y'all.
It is out now. They're buying it. They loved it. I've never I don't think I've ever seen our audience up and dancing before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, every single one of you, for standing up for those 3 minutes. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
I found it a bit disconcerting, but there you go.
Because they've never stood up for you.
You know, never, ever. Thank you for noticing, Tony. So the single's out now, and the album, this is the album High Road, it's called, and this is out on January the 10th.
Yes, and that's the first time I've seen it in real life.
Beautiful, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Thank you.
And from what I've heard you talking about the album, and you say this is a really kind of up, happy, poppy album.
Yeah. I mean, not every song on the record is happy and upbeat and poppy, but I really wanted to reclaim my happiness, because I feel like I've been through things, and haven't we all?
Yeah.
And after some self-reflection, I realized pop music makes me really happy, and so I'm gonna do it. And I just accepted that I'm kind of a cheesy bitch that loves pop music.
Yeah.
And I am not
Other
gonna
people happy.
hide.
It makes other people happy. And as a woman, what you went through, you know, professionally, personally, it's just awful. And at that moment, at the 2018 Grammys, when all the other female artists got up...
Oh, my God.
That must have just... As a viewer, it was, you know, it made you shiver.
I like, still can't even look at that picture without getting weirdly emotional, because it was this moment in the music business where women are always pitted against each other, and it was us saying, no, we're gonna come together and have each other's backs. And it just felt like the most beautiful moment I've ever experienced in my entire career.
Oh, well, listen, we're thrilled to have you back and so happy, and I'm sure there are many more Grammys in your future. Kesha, everybody. Right, that's nearly it. Before we go, we have time for a visit to the big red chair. Who's there?
Mark.
Mark, hello, Mark. You didn't do this the last time because you were only on the
No.
first half.
That's
you
right.
weren't here for the big red chair. OK, so what do you do, Mark?
I'm a chartered surveyor.
A chartered surveyor! And where do you survey your charts?
I'm from London.
In London?
In London, yeah.
Lovely. OK, off you go with your story, Mark.
OK, so back in 1998, a bunch of us from London flew out to Limerick in Ireland for our dear friend Steve's 40th birthday. And what we didn't realise at the time was that President and First Lady Clinton were also in Limerick that weekend. I believe Bill was being given the... the President was being given the freedom of the city. So we had a great Friday night, and then on the Saturday we went to watch the presentations and everything, and the cavalcades. And then afterwards, some of us went to do some sightseeing. We went to the Cliffs of Moher. Beautiful place where it's been in loads of films, etc. Our chauffeur, Mary from Dublin, was driving us along, and we got there. And as we pulled into the car park, Mary turns around and said, "I'm busting for a piss." And she goes running off to the toilets in that way that only somebody who's busting for a piss runs.
Yes. Got it, Mark. Got it.
Almost immediately, she comes stomping back and went, "Can you fucking believe it? I can't have a piss because the First Lady's in there."
That's a good story. You can walk. You can walk. You can walk. Wow. I mean, I've never been in the public toilets at the Cliff of Moher, but I can't imagine that there aren't. They might have cleaned them that day.
Do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Well, one more. You want to pick somebody?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Let's
go on.
go.
You can pick.
Okay, well, I may want to walk away.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
you don't want to
yeah.
prejudge it.
No, we wouldn't
No,
prejudge.
no, certainly not.
But you will feel. Who is it? Hello.
Hello,
Hi, what's your name?
my name's Angie.
And where do you live, Angie?
I live in Crowthorne in Berkshire.
Oh, wow, that's the full address. I mean, Angie, letters will get to you. What do you do there?
I'm a GP receptionist.
Oh, GP reception. Oh, you see, you would feel better immediately if you walked in and Angie was behind the desk, wouldn't you? You just feel, yeah, I'm not as sick as I thought I was.
Yes, I don't need to see a doctor, which is fortunate because I can't.
I'll save Angie the bother of telling me.
Thank you, Andy. Just a look from you, I'm sure it'll clear up.
OK, off you go with the story, Angie.
Okay, so this was many, many years ago when I was single. I met this guy who was really, really nice, really liked him, so he asked me out on a date. So we went to this really nice restaurant, And it was all going well, we were getting on, and we'd finished the main course, it was really good. And then he said, oh, I said, I'm sorry, I said, I don't feel very well. And then the next minute, he threw up everything all on his plate. Not a bit went over the side, all on the plate. And I just thought, oh, my God. We looked at each other, and I could see the waitress coming over. I thought, oh, no, please. So I got my napkin, and I just put it over the plate and covered it. And as she came, she bless her, she picked it up, and she said, would you like dessert? And we both looked at her and went, no, the bill, please.
Okay, that really is all we've got time for. If you'd like to have a go in the race show yourself and tell your story, you can contact us via our website at this very address. Please say a huge thank you to all my guests tonight. Kesha! David Mitchell! Jamie Oliver! Chelsea Clinton! And Hillary Rodham Clinton! Do join me next week with pop star Harry Styles, Doctor Who herself, Jodie Whittaker, the hilarious Kevin Hart, and the one and only Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'll see you then. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye!